previous video I talked about the difference between an externally based and an internally based self-schema. Now it might seem that from the ideas that I talked about in that video was that an externally based self-schema can be viewed as a more of a bad thing. Like you can have this dichotomy between an internally and an externally based self-schema of like, oh, internally based self-schema is better and externally based self-schema isn't good because you get this cognitive dissonance and then your self-schema may end up crumbling apart. And really what I want to put forth in this video is that it really isn't so much about making one thing better than the other, because actually our self-schemas, the way they develop in life throughout our lifetime, is actually at first that they are almost by definition a more externally based self-schema. Because when we are children, we have to look around and outside of ourselves, and we have to listen to the feedback and the information that we get from our parents, from our peers, from our caretakers, and we basically have to learn about ourselves and about the world, about who we are, what kind of a person we are, and what the world is like, simply by looking out and viewing whatever comes back at us in terms of feedback and information. Any information and feedback that comes from the outside world then comes into our minds, and it starts building our schemas, and it builds our schemas about the world, and then it also starts filling in our schema for ourselves. So our self-schema then immediately becomes filled with information from the external world and from other people. And this process of learning is actually a very good thing, because we can we learn a lot from our previous generations, what they have built up. If you look at your parents, they have achieved a certain level of making the world work, so to speak. So the society that is here today was built by our parents, and when I say parents, I don't just mean your or my parents, but the entire generation that was that lives above us, and that is just one generation older. And they really brought up society to where it is today, and they in turn received all these external feedback and information from their parents, and every generation down you see that society is developing. And this is mostly I think the reason, because in childhood we learn all this stuff from what our parents have built up, and then we can learn it quickly, and they teach us what life is about and what society is about, and in turn the effectiveness and the intelligence and the understandings that we have as human beings in our society, they just stack up on top of each other, and they keep getting better and better and better. So the first thing to look out for with this external suggestion of having your schemas filled out by external sources in terms of learning in your childhood is to look at it in terms of appreciation more than anything. Because if you just look at what we enjoy today in today's society, I mean, sure, there are a lot of problems. Yes, there are a lot of challenges, and yes, I can look at all the things that are wrong with our current society, but at the same time we enjoy so much more luxury today than we did a couple hundred years back. Like, just think about all the comforts that you enjoy nowadays. It's just something to be appreciated, and that's simply just because the wisdom of the ages of man. That sounds a little weird, but it has been handed down through generation and continually refined and built upon, and now it's handed down into your generation to work with. And the first reaction to having learned all that stuff is to just simply view it as appreciation, because the thing with these self schemas is is a lot of times people may go into this whole thing of that you often see in spirituality, like, oh, you if you build your self-schema on these externals, if you identify with material possessions and having money and your looks, and then that is the ego at work, and that's very wrong because you shouldn't identify with all these externals. But if you just look at it, it's just an expression of the society we live in nowadays, and that society has evolved in a certain way. And sure, there are good things to be said about it, and some things that may not have such a good impact on the way we live our lives, and some of that may be better to be changed. Like I said, like it's better to build a more solid internally based self-schema. But first thing to look at is just the pure appreciation of getting that, having your self-schema and learning and all your schemas and your learning and your understanding about the world is to look at it with appreciation. And then you can take an honest look and say, and this is usually what happens in adolescence, you go from a shift to a completely externally based self-schema. You start really examining like what's in there, what's in these schemas. Maybe it's really my turn now to examine what these belief structures are, to what certain ideas in society, what they are like, and maybe we can improve some of these things. And then it's really you're doing the same thing that the previous generations have done. You simply appreciate what the previous generation has brought you. You look at it and you see like, oh, now can we see here if we can make any improvements. And I think this process is mostly initiated in adolescence or in puberty, when you start thinking more about certain choices that you want to make in your life, what you want your life to be about. You start to really examine who you want to be as a person, and then you can look back and look at all those things that other people have put inside of you, and that self-schema that is mostly the result of external feedback from other people and learning from the outside world. You start taking a look at it and you say, maybe there are some things that I don't like about it, and maybe there are other things that I do like about it. Let's just see here. What are some internally driven concepts and ideas that I can add, and in that way enhance my self-schema, and also thereby enhance the conduct of my life, so that I act in the ways that I want to act, and I'm the person that I want to be, and I'm living my life in accordance with the self-schema that I want. And it really isn't about looking at the self-schema and say like, oh no, there are all these externally based concepts in there, because really a lot of the stuff that's in your self-schema is just put in there by social conditioning, by other people giving you certain feedback and having you learn about the society and the world that you live in. And in my experience, the best approach is just to view all of that with appreciation. Just look at it, oh thanks, like this is what has gotten society this far, and it's a good thing. And sure, there may be things that may be better off if we change them, because they no longer seem to work for us in the overall grand scheme of things. But the first thing is to just look at it for what it is and appreciate all the value that it has brought, and then look, oh yeah, sure, there may be improvements. Now it's my turn to take that wisdom that has been passed on by previous generations and see if we can make improvements upon it, and then in turn take that improved version and start handing it down to the next generation when it is of course when it is that time, when you start having children yourself, and when you're the old person yourself and you start teaching other people, then it's time to hand it down. But the first thing is I think is just appreciation, and then taking an honest look of let's see if I can if I have some ideas that come from the inside of me that are internally based concepts that I can add and tweak into here, so I can have my self-schema the way I want it to be.